Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about an issue which for a long time I hadn't really been that interested in, or hadn't thought very much about it. But in recent months, in recent sort of over the past year I would say, it's something that I've given a little bit more thought to. The reason I've given it more thought is partly because this is an issue I notice is very, very divisive. And as I'm someone who follows current affairs, this actually doesn't come under current affairs. It's a social issue among many others. But basically, I have given this issue a bit more thought than what I used to try and evaluate my position as I learn about both sides and sort of develop my views on the subject. The subject at hand is abortion. The whole issue of abortion. Now, in the UK, abortion's been legal since 1967. In the US, since 1973, Roe v. Wade. And it's legal in many parts of the world. And it's still illegal in many parts of the world. I think in a number of Catholic majority countries like Brazil, maybe Spain, Ireland, it's still illegal. And maybe if I've misquoted that, then please excuse me. I'd like to just say from the outset what my rough stance is on this issue. I regard myself as honestly divided on the subject because I can genuinely see both sides. I think there are valid views on both sides, and I'm still I haven't reached a consensus in my head as to what exactly I believe in this, although I am sort of developing more ideas about it. I may go into another video with this because it is a very complex subject with many, many angles to take. In the UK, it isn't really spoken about as much as it is in the US. It is an issue here, but certainly not as much. I think at the moment the majority of people take a pro-choice position, but that's, with that those sort of statistics, it's always difficult to grasp exactly. When I say majority, it's probably only a slight majority, not a massive majority. I'm going to analyse both sort of positions, what I understand from them. Obviously these are complex subjects and it's absolutely impossible to go into all the details in a 15-minute video. But I'd like to just express my reflections on both sort of camps and some overall reflections on how both camps correspond to each other. Firstly, the pro-choice position. There are people who support abortion rights. Their stance seems to be that the whole concept of pro-choice is that a woman should have the right to choose what she does with her pregnancy. I think there's a lot of angles to take with that. Fetal development is obviously a major issue in this debate. That is to say, at what point does a fetus become a human? At what point can we call a fetus a human being? Because that's significant in the debate, because if you regard it as a human being, then the argument that it's a woman's body, she could do what she wants, becomes void, because then there's two people involved. In fact, arguably three people, if you consider, well, the father's entitled to an opinion as well. If you consider that the fetus, if we do consider that as a person, then whether or not to terminate that, then the father should surely have a say as well. However, if we regard the fetus as not human, then it is a woman's body, and it's up to her what she does with her body. That's therefore a key issue. I really don't know enough about the biological development of human beings, the anatomical issues here, to say exactly at what stage a fetus becomes a human. I don't quite share the view that it's only human at the moment of birth. I believe I've seen scans of late stage development where the fetus has pretty much every vital organ, almost entirely developed. I have to say, at that stage, I find it very, very uncomfortable, the idea that there should be termination at that stage. Now, in regards to the pro-choice camp, one point, actually, this is directly from the Wikipedia article. One interesting point is the concept of political framing. That is, both sides try to make themselves look good and the other side look terrible. So, assuming a pro-choice position indicates that the opposition is anti-choice, and assuming a pro-life position indicates the opposition is pro-death. And I think the reality is that both sides have a habit of vilifying the other. And I find that rather nauseating about the whole debate. According to Wikipedia, the Associated Press and Reuters encourage journalists to use the terms abortion rights and anti-abortion, which they see as neutral. And I'd agree with that. I think that's a more democratic way to term both sides, because pro-life, pro-choice sort of sends out the impression that the other side is either anti-choice or pro-death, and that's a simplification, I think, of both sides' positions. I've looked in some detail at I've looked at websites, campaign groups that promote both sides' ideological arguments, moral arguments, practical arguments, and I honestly am still at a stage where I can see both sides. At this stage, my position is that I support abortion in the case of rape. I support abortion in the case where the mother's health, or where, even that's a controversial term, where the woman's health is at risk. I strongly support abortion in those cases where a woman's health is at risk, or in the case of rape. But where I have difficulty with abortion maybe is when someone has had unprotected sex, got pregnant, and they're making a decision to terminate. Now again, that gets into the whole thing about, is it a person, is it not, is it human, is it not? If it's not, then it wouldn't be a controversial issue. But I think the reason it is such a controversial issue is because many people do believe that fetus, especially at late stage development, is human. And I have to say I am leaning towards that view. And I have no hard evidence for it. But, you know, a pro-choice person actually said to me, a guy incidentally, said, oh, the fetus is just mush. That was his words, it's just mush. And I find that really hard to accept, because I've seen illustrations and diagrams from that medical students are taught in order to perform an abortion, and based on those medical diagrams, that's not mush. But, you know, another issue that's worth raising is the whole concept of women's rights in this regard, because one of the main arguments the pro-choice people use, and it's definitely been adopted as a feminist argument, is that it's a woman's body, she can do what she wants, and people who are anti-abortion are somehow anti-woman. But they fail to recognise that actually a lot of critics of abortion are in fact women. In fact, in my life, some other people I've come across who are most strong opponents of abortion are women. Yes, Christian women, but still women. So the idea this is a gender issue, I think that's somewhat misleading, because there's men who support abortion, men who oppose abortion, women who support abortion, and women who oppose abortion. So when the pro-choice people always make it out to be a woman's issue, I think they're not showing the whole picture there, because they're disregarding the views of many women who are against abortion. In my own life, I can think of several women I know who are strongly opposed to abortion. Like I said, I think both sides have a way of vilifying one another. On one hand, you have the pro-choice people brand their opponents as woman-hating religious fanatics. And because there has been incidents of violence against abortion clinics, then they tend to portray all opponents as crazy, religious, Bible-thumping fanatics who want to firebomb abortion clinics, and I think that's deeply unfair. Many people critical of abortion go about their arguments in a very civil way, and bearing in mind what their stance is, that they believe it's essentially murder, then they are actually dealing with their position in a very responsible way for the most part. There are extremists, there's no doubt about that, who will attack abortion doctors, attack pregnant women and so on, who are going to terminate, and that certainly exists. And then you have the other side, you have a lot of so-called pro-life people who vilify all women who go through with an abortion as baby killers, so-called baby killers. Both sides are wrong, I think, to use that terminology. You know, not everyone who supports abortion is, or I should say, not everyone who supports abortion rights necessarily likes abortion, but they support the right to do it. And not everyone who is pro-life hates women. That's just an absurd simplification. In fact, I've seen some pro-life material which is actually looking at certain angles of the woman's point of view. For example, the mental health impact it has on a woman to have an abortion, what she actually goes through in terms of mental health, the psychological strain she faces. So this really is a complex issue. I just wish both sides would stop vilifying the other, because for those of us in the middle it becomes very nauseating, and it's difficult to really see what's the moral high ground here. I'm trying to learn what I can about the subject. I honestly see both sides at this stage. Like I said, I support abortion in rape cases for the woman's health. I have a problem with late stage abortion, and at the moment in the UK there's moves to reduce the time period. I believe that's a perfectly reasonable idea. With leaving aside the issue of rape and the woman's health, then I really see very little argument in favour of late stage abortion. I don't see how the pro-choice people can make that case, really. I mean, I can see how they would make an abortion case, but late stage abortion is that's when the fetus is hugely developed, when you can clearly see the heart, the brain, the lungs, every vital organ that a human being has. At the moment, I think the pro-choice people actually have the upper hand, because the law is on their side for now. So that's a point worth stressing. Pro-life people should never ever underestimate the pressure that women go through. It's one of the hardest decisions I think a woman ever has to make. Now, I'm a man, I'm never going to have that experience, but I will say someone very close to me, a close female friend, has had that experience, and I know it was psychologically very painful for her. It was one of the hardest decisions she ever had to make. So pro-life people shouldn't assume that it's something that women do just like that. The vast majority of women who have had abortions it's been a sole case, and they've went through hell in terms of deciding what's best. I may go on to another video here because I'm running out of time actually. In fact, I think I will go on to another video.